Hi, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into end the Fed and this weird Doge coin. Doge issue that just came up with Vivek and Elon. So that's a really hard name for me to do, but you get my idea. Okay, so I'm going to throw you a whole bunch of videos, but I want you to think about where we are today. Today is, I'm trying to look at the date, November 13th. You're going to see this on the 14th, which is Thursday. Or you might see it today. I don't know what I'm thinking off the top of my head here. But one of the things that's happening is we're in 2024. And I've been talking about this since 2020. What? I've been talking about the NESARA thing. Now, there's a prominent dude, and I'm going to mention a little bit of that doesn't believe in NESARA. And there's a whole bunch of conversations related to that. And they go, well, you've been talking about this forever, and it never really happens. Okay. Now I'm going to show you a series of videos here. The first one with Vivek. This is when, this is January of 24, so nearly a year ago. He's still running for president. I had never seen this video, this actual clip. I mean, I've seen him standing there, at different time frames. Now, the guy behind who's asking the question, you can't hear him. They dubbed the words on the bottom here so you can see the closed caption. It's a really interesting guy. This is a Generation Z, Generation Y. I don't know exactly the age on him. He goes around asking questions of people on the street, and he'll play like he's, loves Kamala Harris and then just ask questions, or does all kinds of interesting questions. And he asks one of the most fascinating questions, and the way that it's asked and the way that it's answered is so cool. I had never even seen this particular conversation. Let's check it out together. So this is him asking the question. This guy right here.
Sir, intelligent questions are not allowed in these press gathers. You're only allowed to ask what is within the Overton window of established issues that do not matter to the future of this country. But you asked one that does matter to the future of our country. I'll address it anyway. So, BRICS refers to the Brazil, Russia, India.
By the way, it's not a loud video. I'm not going to make it any louder than this because I can't possibly make it any more than that. But you can at least see what he's saying. So I'm pause that. I just want to tell you, I know you're not going to say it's loud enough. Other ones are loud. This one just isn't, and I can't change it.
China-South Africa alliance that, among other things, is establishing a currency backed by gold, a gold standard, to replace the dollar as the reserve currency of the world.
Okay, so let me pause for a second. BRICS are those countries. BRICS started in 2009, same basic time frame that Bitcoin starts as a blockchain, same basic time frame of the purported quantum financial system in 2009 as a distributed ledger blockchain. Now it was created, all these blockchains were a new thing, right? But BRICS starts then. It doesn't come out and be what it is today until about 22. And people were, and the economists are freaking out. You're going to see a little bit of economist freak out, right, in a second. But economists didn't have a clue what we're talking about. They just saw it was Russia the enemy or China the enemy. They didn't see it was a financial piece doing a gold-backed currency. I didn't know this dude who's going to be the Doge dude along with Elon. I don't know if that's the right word to say, Doge dude. But like he's talking about it and he gets it perfectly right. That they are gold backed or asset backed. And watch how he puts it a little further here.
This is a major problem for the United States. This would permanently increase our borrowing costs if the dollar is no longer the established currency, the established reserve currency of the world.
What's it mean to borrow for your dollar? The fiat currency that we have is just borrowable. I mean, we have the Treasury that sells it as a security bond, basically, and they want people to buy it. Like Japan loves to buy it, has bought it in the past. And almost no one's buying it anymore, and it reduces the value of our currency and increases inflation, which adds to price problems. And he's talking about, like, as BRICS deletes the dollar, and people are seeing that who don't understand NESARA, and they go, oh, we're all screwed, kind of thing. Calm down, calm down.
Especially at a time when we're $34 trillion in national debt, which isn't a great time to increase your native borrowing costs from the dollar no longer being the reserve currency. So yes, actually, that does matter. The right way to deal with it, though, isn't to try to swat that down, but to increase the value proposition of the dollar itself by pegging the dollar to hard commodities. Single mandate for the Federal Reserve should be dollar stability. Stabilize the dollar as a unit of measurement, period. That's going to be the single mandate of the Federal Reserve, at least de facto, the way it should operate. And I'm going to appoint a chairman of the Federal Reserve who shares that view. And it's the way I'm going to actually run the United States. And I do think that I reject this idea that there's 100 different executive branches of government. There's one executive branch. Read Article 2 of the Constitution. The idea that the Fed is somehow immune from that level of accountability is a vision that I reject.
Wow. I had no idea he had talked about that. He's talking about a gold-backed currency that the BRICS countries are already on, and what you don't know is more than 209 nations already are on BRICS. That's NESARA. That's for all the nations. It's for each one of them to have their individual currency, like Vietnam having the dong, gold asset backed. Iraq having, the dinar. And I don't know if they're going to call it the same word. I don't know. I'm not worried about that. Don't freak about that kind of stuff, okay? But it increases the value of that currency because it is asset backed. And he says, don't push back against it. We need to jump in there. And we're going to talk about the US Treasury Note in a little bit here. We're going to talk about some of those points in there too. But fascinating stuff. I mean, because I've been predicting this kind of thing for quite a while. It's been coming on for a while. So now we're getting to see it. Okay, let's talk. Let me show you. This was back in 2021. If you notice, I'm a little heavier than that time frame too, because I was like 230s or something or other, 233 down to 202. I'm trying to get better in all kinds of ways with that too. So watch this one. This is me talking about it in 2021.
Is flipping the cash in the fiat currency of the Federal Reserve. You're going to shove it off the cliff through Trump. I mean, that thing is going to go into bankruptcy, but it's not going to mess the whole country up, because what he did is he brought in more than 286 million ounces of gold, even more than that. That was my last check. But they brought in so much gold, and they're just going to flip it right over into the gold standard. Well, this actually happened on the reverse in 1933 when FDR did that same idea, flipped it from a gold standard to a fiat currency. But now we're going to see it go from a fiat to a gold standard. Is that first off, there's a lot of conversations about this.
2021 again.
Now, I do know that the White Hats want to have a 1-to-1 ratio when we move from this fiat system out to the gold standard.
By the way, I'm not talking about the currency revaluation. I'm not having that conversation in here. I'm talking about going from a gold, we're going to turn in we're going to turn in our dollar bills, $1, and it will be one Treasury note. Okay, that's what I'm getting into there. So don't get off on that weird topic or the other part of the topic.
Standard. Okay, this happens over and over, and people go, that can happen. That would never be that way, because the economists would hate that. Economists cannot believe that you would go from a valueless system to a value-based system.
Okay. Let me show you another one. Talked about the same thing.
One side, we have the Great Reset, which is a digitalized currency, a pure digital currency. And everything for for future issues. If you watch sci-fi movies, they all talk about credits. They never have physical currency. It's all talking about the credit systems. And then we talk about social credit and all that other stuff. That's all the stupid system of the Great Reset. And if there is no answer for the Great Reset, even if Trump comes back, he's going to come back with a complete blown up system. I mean, because you don't fix the fiat currency, you don't fix the Fed, you don't fix the pricing, the inflation level issues. You cannot fix any of that. And the debt crisis is way beyond this stuff. If we don't have an answer, I don't care what Trump does, he comes back to a completely destroyed system where company after company goes out of business and bank after bank goes out of business.
Do you know I put that video up? That was in 22. That was before any of the banks are starting to die. No idea how kind of prophetic that was. Here's what's happening in the background, because Judy Shelton was the potential Fed chairman in 2019. That's who Trump wanted. And then she was put on the shelf. And then she comes out with these books. This is called Good as Gold by Judy Shelton. Just came out in October, right? This is a recent conversation, and I cut it up a little bit here so you can kind of see what they're actually talking about here with this. Let's show you some stuff.
Been called into question. Utah Senator Mike Lee calling for an end to the Fed. In a tweet he wrote,
by the way, Mike Lee is going to be big in this circumstance. Again, this is after Trump has won.
In his words, the executive branch should be under the direction of the president. That's how the Constitution was designed. The Federal Reserve is one of many examples of how we have deviated from the Constitution in that regard. Yet another reason why we should, #end the Fed. Our next guest says the senator is standing up for the Constitution with, in her words, courage and insight. And joining us now, Independent Institute senior fellow Judy Shelton. She was one of President-elect Trump's original Federal Reserve Board nominees, also bring to us the idea that the way the Fed is set up, that it benefited the big money setter banks, and it actually caused them to hoard money because they made $1 trillion combined between all of them instead of lending it out. So instead of questioning the way the Fed works, everybody's like, oh my God, this is.
Okay, what is he talking about? He's talking about in 2008, 2009 timeframe when the Federal Reserve of our own money gave out about $252 billion, and he's kind of giving you a clue about $1 trillion. See, he would have said $250 billion. He said $1 trillion but the reality is, at that exact same moment in 2009, $83 trillion were taken in by the SWIFT, Fed people who were stealing our currency. They distributed it among the banks, and they blocked the white hats from getting it. He's giving you that clue of that. Now watch what Judy talks about here.
Heresy. It's almost like saying you're going to, get rid of, I don't know, apple pie and hot dogs or something.
Well, I think it has become kind of sacrosanct in a way that prevents us from talking about improvements at the Fed. And if the definition of central bank independence means no legislative oversight, if it means no limits on the financial capabilities of the Federal Reserve, and if it means no real accountability, the Fed often claims it has responsibility for stable prices, but nobody got fired after we had the worst inflation in 40 years. So I think it's healthy to challenge some of the...
Okay, what is she saying? But no one got fired with the worst inflation in 40 years. She's not talking about 2008. She's talking about right now. She's indicating the conversation that's about to come. Janet Yellen out. Why hasn't Trump talked about the Treasury chairman yet? That's a clue. Why hasn't he talked about the Fed chairman? That's a clue. Here's our Fed chairman for a short time, and she will be a part of that transition, just like you're going to see a transition in a minute. So that's what I'm trying to tell you. There's a clue in here of happening.
The powers that have been accumulated by the Federal
It's almost
Reserve.
The Federal Reserve to effectively be controlled by an executive branch or effectively the American public to effectively vote on what they think the Federal Reserve should or should not be doing, which to some degree is what you're talking about. I think there's degrees here about what we're really talking about. In most cases, I hate to say this, I think the American public would actually make the wrong decision almost every single time.
The Federal Reserve is a creation of Congress. The problem is not that the executive branch does not have control over the Fed, because the executive branch did not create the Fed. The Fed is not part of the executive branch. If you have a problem with the Federal Reserve and the Federal Reserve Act, it's a problem of Congress. This flows from the controls of the purse, which is the prerogative of Congress. It's not the executive, it's Congress. If Congress wants to limit these things, it has every ability to get together and do so.
Okay, guys, understand what was going on in there. You have Judy Shelton saying the central bankers, if they can't operate under direct supervision, in essence, she's saying maybe they shouldn't be doing their thing, okay? They shouldn't be independent. They should be underneath a federal government. Wow. Then first, no, that wasn't an economist. That's one of the CNBC idiots, and says that American people are too stupid to talk about this. They're too stupid to bring on the possibility of a gold currency. And then we have the other idiot that kind of brings up the conversation of if it's not really the Fed's problem, it's Congress's problem. And like they're pointing fingers at one another. And my response is both of them are part of the problem here. Let's watch another one.
Appointment was made, with Trump announcing Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy will be heading up the Department of Government Efficiency, also known as DOGE. Donald Trump released a statement which read, "Together, these two wonderful Americans will pave the way for my administration to dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulations, cut wasteful expenditures, and restructure federal agencies, essential to the Save America movement." Vivek Ramaswamy responded to the appointment simply saying, "We will not go gently." And Elon Musk took a lighter approach, saying, "Department of Government Efficiency, the merch will be fire." The news was worth of waste.
What a great group of people.
All right, I've only got one question for you, and then I'm getting out of here because this is your stage. But we set up DOGE.
Yes.
How much do you think we can rip out of this wasted 6.5?
Okay, first off, this time frame here this is when Trump was still running. He hasn't even talked about DOGE. This is the first introduction. You guys are hearing about it like on the back end, and we're thinking, oh, it just came up with it right now. They were talking about it for months and months and months. Don't think this is just like, oh, suddenly we're throwing up our hands and we're creating this new thing with Vivek and Elon. What? No. Think beyond the matrix, in essence.
$1 trillion Harris-Biden budget.
Well, I think we can do at least $2 trillion.
Yeah!
Yes.
$2 trillion.
I mean, at the end of the day, you're being taxed. You're being taxed. All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it either becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
It is just utterly fascinating that we're seeing this kind of stuff. I mean, we go from I've been talking about it since 2020. I didn't have a little clip here from 2020, but 2021, 2022, I'm showing you these videos. The same things I've been talking about, right? And so we've been going on this conversation, and people go, it's never going to happen. So what does a gold-backed currency actually do for us? Number one, in the situation with NESARA, you have to have free elections. You see, they're freaking out right now. Why are they freaking out? It's because if Trump does what he's doing, he's going to screw them all. But here's the thing. If you don't fix the elections, and I'm talking about the one rate that just happened, I love that Trump's in, but all the other idiots who are still in government, including AOC, who won her race over Tina Forte. I'll have a conversation about her in a bit, but it's ridiculous. Tina won that race. Tina won the one back in 2020. This is utterly ridiculous. And here's what happens. If you don't fix it, then a new Congress will come in and wipe all this stuff out. You've got to fix the election issues. Secondly, you do. No IRS kills the Fed's support through the Congress. And has Trump talked about not having an IRS? Yes, and they're all having a hissy fit. Literally hissy fits left and right because they don't know what happens. It deletes the three-letter agencies. For instance, the Chevron defense earlier this year comes out, or the Chevron deference, and in this Chevron deference, it started in 1984 and it deleted in 2024. What it did is it said three-letter agencies, if you make up something, as long as you're not killing or raping and stealing, basically like that, as long as you come up with regulations, we're going to let you be. And it was almost impossible to win a case. When SCOTUS came in and said, you know what, all of you Chevron people, boop, you're down the tubes. Therefore, all of those regulatory agencies, which are 654 regulatory agencies, actually cost Americans $2.4 trillion. And out of a 6.5, it's probably about $6.7 trillion budget at this very second. 2.4 is what the three-letter agencies do. You've already heard through some of these videos, and Elon said, I'm going to cut $2 trillion out of it. Think about that number for a second. You go from 2.4 to 400 million. That's a lot of money still. But 2.4 to 400 million maybe? I mean, make up a number. You want to come up with a number that seems more reasonable to that. But, we're talking about a massive drop-off. What, 5% of the budget? And I don't know if he's saying an exact number yet. But Vivek and Elon are going to go through all of the budget issues and wipe them clean. Elon, when he was working on Twitter, he took it down to 20% of the staff. He was famous for going, being on video and asking stupid questions, and the little woke questions, he would fire those people left and right. What do you think he'll do with that? It's coming true, guys. The COVID narrative, which was a part of creating the emergency orders in 2020, comes to an end. It's the death of the COVID silliness, and that's a portion of it too. The gold currency kills inflation. It doesn't allow inflation to happen. When you're on a gold-backed currency, there's no creation of new currency. Like when they write, $100 billion out to Ukraine, we didn't have the money for it, so they just basically wrote a check. of that money. Every single time they would give 400 million, they've given out maybe $113 billion, probably more than that. And it's because they just expand the money issue, which detracts or deflates the capability of that money, and it increases the prices. That's why people are freaking out, and they have no idea NESARA is the solve. But NESARA also says no to the SWIFT. So what happens when you look at your checkbook, you see two different things. The first number on your right-hand side, I'm trying to do it in the correct way. So if you're looking at your checkbook, like see that screen, right? And see the checkbook, and you look at the checkbook, the first number is the routing number. The second number is your account number. The routing number is the most meaningless thing in the history of the world, and all of them lie to you. What do you mean they're lying to me? Here's what they do. They tell you that you don't, this tells you where the bank is from. What do you mean? Your account number and your address of the bank tells me where the bank is. The routing number is an extra capability for them to involve themselves inside of your money. And when we move away from the SWIFT and we go into the quantum financial system, you have all the power. It is the binoculars to see all of your financial history and capability, and you have the control and you have the privacy. Doesn't that sound like what Trump said in 2017? I'm giving the power back to the people. And when we move to a USTN, no inflation, there's this natural response that happens. Prices begin to fall. Now, some people erroneously say we're going to be in 1950s pricing. Stop. Listen, the iPhone here, my little iPhone, didn't exist in 1950s. How much would that be? It's a dumb statement, okay? When we talk about pricing, it will drop. Some of them will drop way more than others. Others might not drop. What if everyone likes these little Contiga cups, right? And they really don't drop in value because people have more money and more people are buying the dumb cup. It might not drop. Maybe it's still $20. I don't know what that is, but you get the point. It's called supply and demand. Price is way more dynamic than saying everything's going to be 1950s pricing. Okay. When we go into a US Treasury note that is gold backed, it means the banks lose power, and they lose so much power over you. And they're going to be swimming in like, what do we do now? Because you have the control of moving your money around, and we don't get the control of it. With NESARA, with Trump, tech, social media, all have lost their power. Do you know that post-election of 2024 here, MSNBC is off by 50%? Now listen, they've already been dropping for a long time. They're off by 50%. CNN is dropping by 40%. Guys, you have no idea. If you were to look at what they were in 2019, they're probably off maybe 20% of their capability before, or what their ratings were. The big tech have already been shown to be complete frauds. And social media has been screwing with you left and right. NESARA also brings a debt forgiveness. You're not going to pay the banks back. Why? Because then it would revalue them or refund them so that they could do their silliness and gross issues all over again. Guys, it's so many cool things, it's not even funny. And then here's what happens. It basically declares the national debt illegal and unpayable. Now, there is a silly statement that someone said probably in 2020 that we paid off $20 trillion in debt of the national $35 trillion of debt. No. Why would I say to we'll use a prodigal son kind of conversation. If you have one son who just uses his credit cards and keeps using the credit cards and doesn't ever think about, the debt ceiling of a credit card, would you give him a new credit card? No, you'd be like, you're cut off, bud. You're like a drunken sailor. We're not giving you anything. And the reality is, if you give the idiot cabal the money, they just go off because they would have paid off debts. And that 35 trillion, no, we're going to make them swallow it whole. And they will be in Gitmo over that stuff. Executive Order 13818. Guys, this stuff is all coming together. And we have Vivek's talking about this stuff. I've been talking about it since 2020. We have end the Fed issues and the DOGE issue that is going to rip all those agencies, all the ridiculous stuff that's happening. It's all happening all at once. Guys, have hope. Chill. Wait for this thing to flip, because when it flips, it's going to be very quick. It's already going almost at light speed right now. Thanks so much.